So this is Sinners Part 2 breakdown, and this is everything that I originally saw in my first breakdown, going over my 21 pages, which sucks because I only got like 30 something minutes of recording time. But let's just hop into it. So, real quick, how do I want to tackle this? We're gonna go off of this, and then we're gonna go from there too. So this is the full biblical breakdown of the movie Sinners. This is everything that I saw. So it was released on Good Friday, right? Which we all know there's nothing good about, the crucifixion of the Messiah. Yet on top of that, it was completely sold out, right? So it was sold out on the Sabbath, which is a day that is meant for worship and rest in the Most High's eyes. Yet this film is actually glorifying sinning. On top of that, it was released during Easter. The Sabbath is Saturday, if you didn't know. But on top of that, it was released during Easter weekend. So that's kind of like a slap in the face to blacks. Not only is Easter not biblical, but its connection to paganism honestly makes it more ironic that a movie that's glorifying sin will be released during that time. What even hits harder is it actually received the 8.2 rating on IMDb, which when you really think about it, most films don't really get over like a 6 or a 7. And what's crazy is with it receiving an 8.2 rating, it just shows like America really praises sin. Like everybody who I talked to was like, yeah, that was a great movie. It was a good movie. Blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. But did y'all really see the full undertones of what's going on? Like, and then on top of it, another thing, it was produced by Domain Entertainment. That's like the actual production company that made it. Now, that's a very interesting name. Like considering like spiritual domains and territories, are they claiming your actual domain? Are they bringing you from your world and putting you into their domain, of wickedness and sin, which we see is prevalent throughout the entire movie. So let's go into the opening scene, right? So, yep. Yeah, so let's go into the opening scene. So we have the opening and the music symbolism. The narrator says that people are born with musical talents, right? That are so strong that they can pierce between life and death. They can summon spirits from both the past and the future. It speaks of different cultures. So they go into like Ireland, speaking of like how their musicians are called fillies. It goes into the Shoto lands, with their musicians being fire kings. And then on top of that, it goes into West Africa, which are pretty much called like griots, who were historians and musical tellers. Now, what's powerful is the narrator says that the music can attract healing or evil. That's the dual nature of music. And then what we see, sinners. Sinners literally pops up at the time on the screen at 111. And that's normally like a number that's associated with new beginnings and or spiritual awakenings. Is that a coincidence? Honestly, heck no. So let's go ahead and go into the settings, right? So the movie opens up in Clarksdale, Mississippi, 1932. And what's wild, now I'm going to actually go off of what I saw. What's wild is we see the son, who we later find out is Sammy. We see him defeated in defeated clothes. They're tattered, blood all over him, scratches on his face, returning back to the church. And it's a white church at that. Not saying like all white people, but the building is white, signifying like purity. And what's wild is we hear them singing like, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. What's crazy is right before Sammy came back, like the light shone and boom, you feel me? Like that's kind of what ended the vampire's reigns or the demon's reigns in the end of the movie. But that was foreshadowing a few things. So what we see, right, is everyone in the church. They're all black, but they're dressed in white, which is symbolizing purity, with the congregation. But what's wild is we see the pastor is dressed in all black, which is a strong contrast from that purity in that white congregation. He's at the pulpit and he has three crosses behind him, one on his right side, one on his left side, and one directly above him. So on the wall. And what that could honestly represent in my eyes could be either the Holy Trinity, a mockery, or not. Then we see here that the preacher actually welcomes his son back in, right? So he welcomes him back in, and then it shows flashbacks of what the son really went through. Um, and then he says, "My son has found the call of sin, but the good Lord calls upon us to be wary of men that sin." He embraced his son, right? But he asked him to promise to him, his father, to promise to the Most High, and he promised to promise to the congregation, which is the witnesses. Things have to be done before witnesses, that he be done with sin. He said, "Drop the guitar, Sammy. Let it go. In the name of God, put it down." Right? So that guitar honestly led to Sammy's sin or falling away from the word. Next scene, right? We see Sammy in the cotton fields, humming, finishing out the day. And on top of that, he says to another lady, he was like, "I'll see you at service," which shows, it honestly just shows how our people, blacks, were spiritual and happy, even in the hardship, right? Now we're gonna fast forward to an entirely another scene where it shows Michael B. Jordan, and he's one actor, yet he's playing two roles. So it's like a duality role. There's one that's dressed in blue, and then the other that's dressed in red. Two different personalities. Then let me see. So we got the two personalities. And then if I was to read this, so one twin is named Smoke and the other twin is named Stack. And what's wild is one is calm and wise, that's Smoke. And then the other is driven by lust and impulse, right? So together, you see them actually, buying a building from a white man, which is interesting, right? So, um, like I said, they're in front of the building, which would later actually be their demise. But they're buying the building from a white man. So what we have, right? We have two free slaves from up north who just bought the building, the land, and the property. Yet what's wild is it's an illusion. It's the illusion of freedom or ownership that, the government and, others who have been in charge have always given our people. So it's really saying like, yeah, you buying this land, but it's an illusion. You really don't own anything. So, and then another thing as well is we I had to look up the names, right? So the spiritual meaning of the name. So smoke, which would mean like a remnant of fire or warning or like a mystery. And it can even mean wisdom and or danger, right? And then you have the little brother, which is stack. That's the one that's going after the impulse driven by lust. Stacking riches could also mean like stacking sins or building without a foundation. So next thing we see is Sammy show up to church, right? And what's wild is we see Sammy show up to church um, to see his pops, and he sees his guitar, like he sees it just chilling kind of off to the side. And as soon as he sees the guitar, this is actually the first time we see that guitar too. And as soon as he sees it, boom, like they play ominous music in the background, which is kind of almost foreshadowing of what's to come or the danger that that specific guitar brings, right? So his pops wants Sammy to help to deliver a sermon. That sermon was from 1 Corinthians 10 and 13. And if we look at that scripture, it says, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to all men. But God is faithful, who will suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will, with the temptation, also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. What's wild is Sammy actually knows the scripture, right? But because we see him close it and he's saying it verbatim, like he knows it by heart. But what's wild is he says he wants to leave his dad. He wants to leave. And his dad asks, where you gotta be that's more important than being in the house of God. Here's the crazy part, right? And we'll go ahead. Nah, so we don't even need that. Here's the crazy part. Sammy says, I've been working hard all week. I want to be free of this for one day. Now, let's go into it. If Sammy is to help with the sermon tomorrow and worked all week, we can gauge that the day is Saturday. That the day is Saturday. That pretty much it's the Sabbath, the day of holiness and a day of rest. So, where do you have to be that's more important than the house of God on the Sabbath, right? Well, if you do a quick Google search, you can also see like the day that the slaves really got to rest was Sunday. So this is just more confirmation. If he said, I'll see you at service, and if his pops wants him to help with the service for tomorrow, that the day is actually Saturday. So his pop says, so you can play music for drunkards, philanders who shuck responsibility of their family so that they can sweat all over each other. Crazy, right? Let me exit out of this right here. Crazy. So the next thing that we see is the similitude to kind of like now, right? Everyone can't wait till the weekend just to be free or to party, get drunk, get high, go clubbing. Why do you think, for real, think about this. Why do you think that they pay you on a Friday? So you can do just that. You can, when you get paid at the end of the day, and we all know that Friday to Saturday sundown is the Sabbath, or the day that the Most High gave us originally to rest and reset and reflect, not to go out and willingly sin. So that's why they pay you on that day. So you can, I done worked all week. I just want to be free type stuff, right? So what's crazy is then Pops even let him know, like, look, he finally tells his son, like, son, keep dancing with the devil, and one day he's gonna follow you home. And honestly, then you kind of see the next scene. So the twins pull up to get Sammy. And what's wild is Sammy is forsaking the church to go dabble in sin or dance with the devil, hanging out with the twins, because that's all that they're bringing is, sin, pretty much, having a good time, building their own juke joint, having a party. That way they can go ahead and make their bread and all this stuff. So what's crazy is, fast forwarding, they riding and they just having a good time. They ain't seen each other in a minute. He asked the brothers, how was Chicago? They said that they came back home because they would rather deal with the devil that they know. That's kind of like an overarching theme within this movie is people going out to deal with the devil. You feel me? Or they use that term a lot within the movie. Just saying like these vampires that they are, talking about, they're not really vampires. They're really devils or demons in disguise. So let's go ahead and go to the next scene. We see the brothers pull up and then they open up a truck. And then boom, there's a rattlesnake just hissing at them. And the two brothers, they actually kill it. But what's wild is they actually zoom in on the death of the snake. Or more so importantly, the last breath that the snake took. And in that, let me see if I have it. Nope. I'm looking for it. Nope. So I don't see it over here. So that's cool. That's cool. We'll go ahead and go to this. So they zoom in on that last breath of the snake, right? And then the brothers brought that spot. The brothers brought they bought the building that you first see them in front of so they can make that into their own juke joint. And the brothers, like I said, name is Smoke and Stack. So we already realized what the spiritual name meanings of those was. Well, after that, they decide to split up and go to town. And then the song Wang Dang Doodle plays. And let me see if I got the spiritual meaning of the song Wang Dang Doodle, because I really wanted to get the name of it, the spiritual meanings of each song. But let me see. Nope. Okay, so I don't see the spiritual meaning of that song. But that song played directly after that, right? So next thing we see is they go to an all black town, right? Well, even though they're in an all black town, it's interesting to see that most of the stores we see are actually ran by Asians. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it, because it's like even in our own communities, we live there, yet we still don't own the things or have to answer to others that aren't us, you feel me, or that don't look like us. So it's more illusions of freedom. Like we're not actually really free. And then what Smoke lets them know, he talks to an Asian dude and he lets him know that they're throwing a big party for the night and that they need catfish for at least 100 people, serving foods that we can't eat, right? Like due to the dietary restrictions, the Most High said that we aren't to eat these. And if we look at it, you know, what the Bible says in Leviticus 11:9-12, it says, "These shall ye eat of, all that are in the waters. Whatsoever hath fins and scales, them shall ye eat. And whatsoever have not fins and scales, they shall be an abomination to you." Catfish family is an abomination. Like it's a spliced creature. Like we shouldn't be eating that, especially from what the Most High says. Regardless of what y'all want to say, oh, Christ came and changed stuff. No, he didn't. But going back to this, right? So now it's saying that we go back to Stack and Sammy, right? So the younger brother and Sammy, they're riding around in the car, and what's wild is Stack is actually teaching Sammy more about lust, you know. So we see, you know, him teaching Sammy about fellatio, or, you know, eating the cat pretty much, you know. And he goes on to ask Stack, like, what happened to your dad? And Stack told him that, you know, Smoke actually killed their dad to protect Stack, you know, his younger brother pretty much. And then Stack also told him that, you know, the guitar, I see you still got the guitar. Well, the guitar, he told him that it came from this guy named Charlie Patton. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know who he was, and also I wanted to know why that guitar was so symbolic for Sammy to hold on to. You feel me? Like Sammy didn't want to let it go. And when I had to look it up, it says, "Who is Charlie Patton?" Right? Well, Charlie Patton is known as the father of the Delta blues. So, and what's crazy is Patton's guitar was legendary. His music was spiritual, painful, and deeply influential, almost kind of like Sammy's, right? And then after we get that explanation, I gave you that. But after he tell him it's Charlie Patton's guitar, he say, "Play something for me." And then Sammy instantly plays this song that he made up called "Traveling." Now, the spiritual message behind that song, and that song is by Miles Kenton, if you was wondering. But the spiritual meaning behind "Traveling" is it represents a spiritual drift, right? Just meaning like it's moving away from your purpose. And his music isn't just a song. Honestly, for Sammy, it's a step into rebellion, because he's moving away from his purpose. His purpose really should be within the church and, you know, helping his father with the sermon. Yet that ain't what he want to do. He wants to follow sin and, you know, do his own thing. Like Miles Morales say, "Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing." That's Sammy right there. So let's go back into the next scene. So the next scene that we see is we see Stack and Sammy actually, get to the train station, so they can actually recruit people and different musicians for the juke joint for that night. Stack is on a mission, Smoke is on a mission, but they all have the end goal of bringing people to the juke joint for this party. So we see them go to the train and they gather more musicians for the juke joint, right? Well, Stack introduces Sammy as the preacher boy. Well, it was interesting. I don't know if y'all caught it. I was able to do a play-by-play for every single scene. But as soon as he say, this is Sammy, the preacher boy, and then he says he is the first blues player. Oh no, he's the finest blues player this side of the Delta. Well, when he said that, we see Sammy kind of look sad, right? And it's especially when he say that. And it's kind of like Sammy, like, if you read more into it, it's kind of like Sammy had a small conflict in his heart. Like, like that didn't sit well with him. One, because probably he has a calling to really be a preacher or, be on that right path. But, you know, that's not what he wants. But his pops, has feelings about him being a blues player, or Sammy real calling of what he wants to do is become a blues player. However, he understands how his pops feels. So with him saying, this is the preacher boy, yet he's also the finest blues player on this side of the Delta, it's kind of like a cognitive dissonance in a little bit when it comes to that. Next, we also go to the next scene where we see the harmonica player, which is Slim. And this is a guy who plays pretty much for pennies and pretty much all the liquor that he can drink. Well, what's wild is we see Stack actually offers this dude a beer, right? And as soon as his tongue hits it, like I'm talking about some, my God, type stuff. Like he say it's like the best thing since sliced bread. It's the best thing that he's ever tasted. And sadly, that's honestly how you get our people, is by these type of vices. And what's wild is as soon as he tasted that, like he wasn't gonna do nothing for Stack, but as soon as he tasted that, bro, he was hooked from his first sip. And what's wild is like even in let me see, is that further on? Oh, yep. So we'll go into it. So then we also see both Sammy and the drunk, aka Slim, they're playing, and after they're playing, like, kind of a song together, a nice little jig together. That way they can bring and draw more people in. And Stack is over there narrating like, hey, these guys are gonna be down in our juke joint tonight. Come on out. We're gonna have a good time, good music, good drinks, all the blah 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 you can eat, stuff like that. So they're pretty much marketing, trying to get people to come in. Well, what's wild is once they're finished, there's a woman who is looking at Sammy, but she's looking at him mad sexually and lustfully, right? But what makes it even worse is we find out, from their conversation that this is actually a married woman. And Sammy is flirting with her. She like, I'm a married woman. And he like, happily, and she's entertaining this flirtatious activity or this adulterous type of interaction. So it's wild with it. And then it goes and shows another woman, which is a white woman, right? Who actually Stack had relations with. And what's crazy is this woman is scorned by the ways of Stack. However, Stack isn't, he isn't remorseful or anything like that or repenting. And she tells him that he's gonna rot in hell, right? And honestly, he willingly says, yeah, I will. And I'll save you a room. I'll save you a room too. So they're willingly accepting damnation. And what's wild is that's kind of foreshadowing to what's gonna happen later. Foreshadowing to what's gonna happen later on within the movie. Then going fast forwarding, we also see Slim himself actually made a lot of money just, based off of his musical talents and everything like that. However, he drank it all up. Uh, and ever since then, he became a drunk. Now, this is kind of going into like biblical territory. So this is just like Judah said, you feel me? Like Judah is from the king's tribe, same tribe Christ came from. He's one of the 12 patriarchs, 12 tribes of Israel. So I think he's like the fourth brother. But pretty much every brother or every patriarch left a testament for their children of what was to come and or what was their downfall. And Judah himself said, let me go ahead and get that there. The testament of Judah. He said, beware of strong drink, for through wine I was deceived, and I lay with a harlot who disguised herself. We straight lost kingship through drunkenness, family. So just like Slim, who lost all his funds and now is just a drunk, for days to come. That's what happened to Judah. Not saying Judah became a drunk, but from letting that strong drink come in, that's what happened. Like he lost what he originally had. So that's why we got to stay away from certain things. Bible calls us to be sober minded. So going back to that is next, and this scene is even crazier because we see Stacks, Sammy, and Slim now pull up on this dude named Cornbread. Cornbread is out in the field tending, picking cotton with his wife. Well, Cornbread, big and sweet, um, he gets disrespected by Stack, right? Disrespected bad. And not only Cornbread gets disrespected, Cornbread's wife is also disrespected to the point where Cornbread is like, you done messed up now. Now I'm about to have to beat you up. Whereas it's so wild because um his wife is actually fine with the disrespect, be all due to the almighty dollar. And before he was about to go and beat Stack up, she like, well, hold on, how much money does he stand to make? Because Stack, like I said, was recruiting people to come to the juke joint, so he had a job for him. But even though she was disrespected, Cornbread was disrespected, she still let it slide based off of the funds, the finances. So next, we going back to Smoke. We going back to see everything that Smoke is doing. And we see that Smoke is at the home of his child's mother. And what's wild is he's standing at a grave. And on that grave, you have like milk in a sealed bottle. And you also have some type of black totem on the ground right over the kid's grave. Now, when I had to look it up because, this could be like witchcraft in my opinion, but it's more like Southern folklore. So the milk in the bottle is just like peace offerings or is comfort for the child's spirit. And then the totem could be like a spiritual barrier or guide. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I just call her the voodoo lady because for lack of better terms, I don't know her name. But that's what she do. So we see Smoke talking to the child's mother, and I call her the voodoo lady. You'll see why. And she asked him, I thought y'all was done with the devil, foreshadowing to more of the events that's going to lead on tonight. And then she also said, he also tried to hand her money. And she was like, I don't need that cursed money you got. She said that money comes with blood, which it did. And then she also said that pretty much like she has been praying for him, and I believe Stack as well, and also working every route that her grandmother taught her to keep them safe, which is root witchcraft, and also the fallen angels taught us the cutting of roots back when they came down during the time of Enoch, before the flood. And if we really get that, it says in the book of Enoch 8:3, it says, and Semjaza taught enchantments and cutting of roots. Then what's wild is we also see her as Smoke. Like, you still got that mojo bag that I gave you. And that I gave you for protection. And he gives it to her. But what's wild is then she goes on to re-bless the bag. um she also keeps him safe, re-bless the bag to keep him safe. And what she does is start doing witchcraft. She starts pouring out libations and also praying to a lesser god or, an African deity, which is O'Shea. This right here is straight voodoo and witchcraft, family. Then we also see her call Smoke by his real name. And we find out that Smoke's real name is Elijah. And if we look into it, the spiritual meaning of Elijah means is a Hebrew prophet, someone who called down fire and rebuked the kings and didn't die, was taken up, and the name means Yah is my God. So this is a powerful spiritual meaning. And that just kind of shows like Smoke represents the voice of righteousness within this movie, in a sense. Even though he was austere, he was hardened, he was capping people, you feel me? But out of all of that, he was still kind of like a voice of reason, a voice of righteousness. And you will see that further on as things come. But another thing, a Hebrew prophet who called down fire. After, at the end, that's exactly what happened. Fire came down on the head vampire or the head demon after Smoke did what he did. But we'll get into that, right? So next thing we also see is now we're fast forwarding to everyone happy. We see all the key players gathering together. Boom. Everybody happy. We see all the key players gathering together. But what's wild is out of nowhere, we see a man fall. Literally, like I'm talking about, where did he come from? He ain't jump. He like fell out of like heaven, which was wild. But also the dude was burning up. Like his skin was burning and everything. You feel me? And if we really go into it, it's like he fell from the sky. And, in Luke 10 and 18, it said, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from the heaven. Boom. And what's crazy is he starts to speak of Indians coming to capture him. And he offers the people of the household, like the household residents, gold for a stay and protection. So what's wild, family, is demons and vampires, they're synonymous in this specific movie. Demons slash vampires, but we're gonna really go with demons, will use any method of temptation to let them come into your house or enter your temple, you know? And what's even wilder is we all know that Indians are spiritual people. Well, the Indians show up and they try to warn the residents. They tell him that this man is actually not what he seems. And they say, and God forbid you let him into your home. Indians are very spiritual. They knew something that the others did not, and they tried to protect. But what's wild is the lady, she didn't even want to listen to him, right? She actually met them at the door like this, you feel me, with a whole shotty in dude face. So um after that, we see as the Indians is like, yo, we gotta go. Like, sun going down, bro, we gotta bounce. So as they head off, right? As the Indians head off, we see that there are three. Is that in her? Nope, 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 nope. Cool. As the Indians head off, we see that there's three large birds that set upon the house. Now, these could be buzzards or these can be crows. But later, you see the man and the couple are all vampires or demons. So these birds could also be the symbolism of them, of those three. Excuse me. So then the next thing we see is the lady, she goes in to the house looking for her husband. But to her surprise, she finds the man there that they just helped out dressed in her husband's blood. So this just goes to show you, like time and time again, the Most High sends someone to warn us, or he sends a watchman to sound the alarm, blow the trumpet. The Indians, which was the watchman or the warning, came to warn her. Yet we always disregard the warning, unfortunately. So we see what happens when you don't listen. There's consequences. So then we also see that we are into the next scene, right? So we are thrust in the scene of the opening of the juke joint. And what's wild is you see that people are drinking, gambling, dancing, they're smoking, all different types of, debaucherous type of activity. But this is also similar to what be going on the Sabbaths, or similar to what goes on Saturdays when people go out clubbing, to bars and more. We also see that the married woman shows up and also once again starts flirting with Sammy. Then on top of that, the married woman, what's wild is she's also flirting with a preacher's son. So kind of like tempting a man of God. And come on now, we've seen countless times where men of God have been tempted by like married women, like even Joseph, when he was in Egypt, being tempted by um the head dude's wife and stuff like that, to the point where I'm not gonna get into all that. But yeah, now she was wild. But now let's fast forward. Now we see Sammy Moore, right? He's introduced for the first time in front of everybody at the juke joint. And what's so crazy is he said, I wrote this song for my dad. And the song is called I Lied to You. And what's wild is it's a song to his dad, but the spiritual meaning of that song, I Lied to You, is he's rejoicing in rebellion. The lyrics is mocking repentance. And what's crazy is he's actually happy, to be singing this song, kind of like forsaking the path of righteousness for sin. And this sin is the blues in this sense. And man, I tell you, what's crazy is as he's playing this song, I Lied to You. Like, I'm not even gonna go over off of this because this is light work compared to what I actually wrote in. So it says Slim tells Sammy that blues was brought from home. You feel me? It wasn't no religion passed down. This was brought from home type stuff. And he said, after that, we see Sammy performing for everyone. But during that performance, we hear the opening speech start playing again. And it's talking about how there's music that's so strong it can pierce a man's soul or even conjure up spirits from past or the future. And what's wild is once you say that, they start showing you all different types of genres of music, along with eras of music, along with portrayals of music. So we see African dancers, we see future guitarists, we see a DJ player, we see break dancers, we also see African drummers. We see Megan Thee Stallion type twerkers. You feel me? We see Crip walkers. Then we even see Chinese dancers dressed up. We see Bloods. We see geisha Asian dancers. Then it focuses heavily on this like African folklore type dancer. The ones that'll be wearing the mask. They have like they'll be covered in like the fur or some type of outfit, and they'll be dancing that quick dance, and they'll be moving throughout the entire space. Then from there, we see modern hip hop dancers. We even see ballet dancers. And what's so wild is um it's like the whole scene and the music starts to transform from like modern activities to past activities, and the music and the genres even start to change and mix together. And this is just kind of like a similitude and showing you that oh well, excuse me. And then it starts to change genres. And then what's even crazier is you see like the whole juke joint, the roof of the juke joint is kind of like it's being burned down. And just like rain, you see ashes, like red fiery ashes falling all over everyone as Sammy is still playing his guitar. And what's crazy is later on they're still playing, but they show you another scene where the juke joint itself is now burned down. Like they're all standing and dancing and kicking it while Sammy is playing with flames around them. House is burned down, right? Similar to, you let these spirits into your house, it can burn your whole house down in a sense, or, it can cause your temple to go to damnation. So we see them playing and they're like dancing in the fiery grave for the most part, dancing in hell. And then right after that, you see the three demons or the three vampires standing on the outside of all of this chaos, pretty much like they were drawn to the chaos. And as soon as the song was over, we see Sammy and the married woman. So, like I said, it's like they're dancing in a fiery grave. They're dancing in hell. They accepted, their sin. And right once that song, and then they show the demons show up, right? Or the vampires show up. And right when that song is done, not 2 seconds later, we see Sammy having relations with the married woman. Then what's even crazier, scroll that down right there, my friend. Then we see the demons or the vampires. Like I said, they're synonymous in this movie. We see them show up to the joint and they ask for permission to come into the spot. Well, what's crazy is demons know is what's crazy is the demons um they're on the outside, right? And then Smoke, Stack, and a few others show up to the door to pretty much confront them or confront the white people. Like, hey, y'all really can't, excuse me, hey, y'all really can't, y'all can't come in. Y'all got your own spots and stuff. Well, next thing you know, we see Sammy actually walk to the door. But once Sammy pops in into the scene, the head vampire or the head demon, he smiles and says, "You must be that voice I heard." Say what? Like Dr. Umar say, "I beg your pardon." Like, nah. Like the song, uh, yeah, the song that the demons and the vampires play. Oh, well, so now we go to another scene where the demons or the vampires are trying to prove their worth in a sense. Like like I said earlier, they use any tactic to get into your temple. So they're playing music saying, "Hey, we play a good tune too. Let us in and we can play for y'all." Well, the song that they played, which is very, very creepy, is called Pick Poor Robin Clean. Pick Poor Robin Clean. And the song meaning of that, the spiritual meaning, it's a blues song, right? But it's about stripping someone bare spiritually. It's robbing innocence. And then going into that, we see that Smoke, the reasonable one, like I said, the voice of righteousness through this movie, Elijah, says, um, he says, don't let them in, right? Whereas Stack, the immature one or the impulsive one, is thinking lighthearted about, the situation. And he's thinking more about greed because if we let them in, they got money. So we can get more money. But Smoke is like, listen to reason. No, like I'm warning you, this isn't what we should do. And we also see that Stack and his girl pretty much, let his girl just make the decision that honestly leads everyone to their demise later, despite his brother's wisdom and guidance. So okay, on. So yeah, it just shows that they go back to like I was saying earlier with the lady and then the Indians. Is time and time again we don't listen to the information or don't listen to the wisdom from those who are wiser than us, or don't listen to the signs that the Most High has put there for us to hear or to heed. We want to do our own thing from our own lust, our own greed, etc. And unfortunately, to say, but the woman is the downfall of Smoke and Stack. And unfortunately, the woman walked to go outside. So this is Mary, who is with Stack. She goes outside to talk to the white people or the demons. To not saying that white people are demons, but in this, they were white. In this, they were vampires, and also they were demons. So she goes outside to talk to the demons, and what's crazy is she gets turned, bro. Like she gets turned. But as she even goes out there, like but before she goes out there, Smoke also is having a very important conversation with Sammy. And in this conversation that Smoke is having with Sammy, he's telling Sammy to follow in his daddy's footsteps. Like, don't follow after me. Don't follow after Stack. We ain't living right, bro. Your pops knows the right way. Your pops is living right. Like, if you want to, pretty much to follow the righteous path. And he's like, if you want to make music, do that for the church, bro. You don't have to be in this club playing for these people. You can still make impactful music for God. You feel me? So that's what he was insisting that he does. But Sammy was like, nah, I want to stay on the wrong path, dog. I like this scene. But what's crazy is Smoke is really looking out for his little cousin, and he wants him to do right, not following their footsteps. And what's crazy is it's kind of like the similitude would be like a drug dealer on the street, right? Who, sees that there's a good kid in the neighborhood, who he goes out of his way to, make sure that this kid stays away from this path or stays away from drugs and stuff. He's like, nah, bro, you can't deal with this. Keep your head in them books, or you can't deal with this, bro. Get on somewhere. I know your mama gonna be blah, blah, blah. So that's pretty much how Smoke was reacting and, guiding Sammy. But Sammy still wanted to go through that sin and do his own thing. Like Miles, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. But then we go to, like I was saying, the white lady, aka Mary, goes to reason with the demons or the head vamps outside. And they are playing a song called Will Ye Go, Lassie Go. Will Ye Go, Lassie Go. And what's wild is the song meaning of this is about, it's like an Irish song about persuasion, a symbol of surrendering to temptation. But they're also playing like a real soft melody. It sounds all nice and sweet. It kind of makes you feel at home. But all that's showing right there is literally like they're presenting themselves as sheep and no, as wool. How does that go? They are wolves in sheep's clothing. And that goes back to Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravaging wolves. They presented themselves all nice, sweet, won't harm a fly, playing beautiful songs and melodies, but inwardly, bro, they were wicked. They literally, bro, started salivating as he was talking to her. Like he wanted to eat. You feel me? But let's go back to it. So while Mary is out there talking to them, she asks, to see proof if they had, money, and if they had, funds. And what's crazy is the head guy actually pulls out 2 gold coins, right? Something that she had never even seen before. And he also tells her it's from a different place and a different time. These are pretty much like ancient secrets. And then he starts praying into her life, exposing things from the inside she didn't even think they'd know. And what's crazy is it's like demons, they be knowing like a lot more than you really give them credit for, dog. So I mean they talk, you feel me? They got spiritual realms and friends just like we do. But he tells her he could have saved her and her mother from their pain. Saved through how? Through damnation? Because we already know the only one that could have saved them, from their pain is Christ. But what's wild is, like I said, he starts salivating once he's talking to her, and then his eyes finally turn red. So one thing that I didn't notice that my homeboy noticed while we was watching it, he was like, notice how, as everybody is talking, the three vampires or the three demons, while they talking to Mary outside in the moonlight, he was like, notice how we can't see their eyes, right? We can't see none of their eyes. It wasn't until he was about ready to turn Mary that we saw his eyes and his pupils change and he started salivating and stuff. And then right after that, right after we go to the next scene, and this is the married woman now. So, because earlier Sammy was like, "Are you gonna sing?" And she was like, "I don't know." So right after Mary gets turned by the head vampires, that's when we go to the married woman in the juke joint, and she's singing and she's dancing around. She's dancing extremely. Yep. All right. So we go back here. So she's dancing extremely provocative, and seductively on stage, pretty much getting everybody riled up in the spirit of dance or whatever the heck is going on in there. And in this process of all the music playing and everything like that, we see Mary come back, and then she asks for permission to be let in after she's already been in that mug, you know? So she's been turned, and remember, they need you to willingly let them into your space or your temple before they can start wreaking havoc. This is just how spirits operate. You have all power over them until you willingly give that power up to them. And then going back to that, um she has, oh, okay. She makes a beeline straight for Stack to pretty much tempt and turn him to the dark side or into whatever that she was already in. Like we saw earlier, she said, "You gonna ride in hell?" He said, "Yeah, I will. I'll save you a seat." Like I said, foreshadowing to now. She's turned. Now she's going to turn Stack. So going back to that, Stack even knew. I don't think he necessarily knew that, she had been turned, but what he says is powerful. He says, um, you can already see that she a different person. One, from how she's talking, how she's moving, how she's operating. And then says, yeah, Stack says, but you're somebody else's. So this could mean two things. Yeah, she's demon possessed now, or she's a vampire now. So she's somebody else's, but also she is also a married woman, fawning over this man. So yeah, she is somebody else's. So it had like a twofold type meaning. And then next, we see our boy Cornbread, right? Let me see where we at. Yep. So next we see our boy Cornbread, and he is attacked by going outside to take a leak. And the way that they get him is through like whispering temptations to him or tricking him. And then during all of this is still going on while the married woman is on stage dancing seductively, singing, adding and doing like ritualistic dancing, stomping, crawling on stage, gyrating, and pretty much everybody is in an uproar, in like a musical feeling good type uproar. There's a lot of chaos going on within this whole song. And I'm talking about the chaos from Mary turning Stack to, this cheating gambler getting stumped out by, half the people, to the married woman dancing around, gyrating, to Cornbread getting turned, to and it's so much more. And it's kind of like the music drowned out the chaos, or more importantly, kind of like insinuated it. And next after that, we see that the song they're singing is called Pale Pale Moon, right? And kind of like the song meaning behind Pale Pale Moon is like, or Pale Moon is like hidden danger or night deception. And it also has a satanic undertone, to the point where if you really listen to the end of it, it honestly sounds like they're saying hell devil, or hell devil. And it sounds like hell devil, in my opinion. So let's fast forward, right? We see another case of not listening to wisdom or guidance at play. So Smoke sends Sammy to go get Stack, but what happens? Sammy finds Stack and he leaves him he just leaves him be. Like he sees that he's with Mary and he's like, oh, all right, I'm gonna close the door. But just think, if he would have returned with Stack or followed orders like he was supposed to, Stack's life could have very well have been spared. There's consequences for not listening to wisdom, family. And then we also see what's wild is Smoke then goes in to find Stack himself getting turned by Mary, getting turned out. Literally. But what's wild is Smoke, he ain't playing with her, bro. He like up both of them mugs. It's just start unloading the clip on her, right? But what's even crazier, we see that Mary, after that whole clip get unloaded in her, she just gets up, laughs, and runs off. So this just goes to show you kind of like Ephesians 6 and 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. And what's crazy is that was no longer a human. You feel me? That was a spirit in that body, operating. So you can't really fight that with carnal or non-godly weapons. And as we see, like you can't fight them with weapons. I mean, like non-godly weapons. Like it says for 2 Corinthians 10 and 4, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Like you can't kill them like that. You feel me? You see, she just got up and bounced. And then another thing that I forgot to say was when they was making the juke joints like sign to bring everybody in and show them this is the juke joint. They only had red, and what's crazy is since they was making it, it looked kind of like blood in a sense as they was making it, kind of like also sealing that deal or sealing that kiss of death to everybody in the juke joint. And then fast forwarding, after we see Mary get shot up, gets up, laughs, and runs on out, we see the voodoo lady. We see the voodoo lady refer to Mary as a haint. And I'm gonna be honest with you, family. I didn't know what a haint was, so I had to look it up. Well, a haint in Southern folklore is a malevolent spirit, and it must be blocked from entry or associated with doors, bottles, and rituals. So, what's crazy is when you think about it, is like a haint is something that is a malevolent spirit. So they're letting us know that these are spirits, bro. So it's not no vampire and nothing like that. They're saying that they're spirits. So after they find that out, they like everybody got to evacuate, right? Everybody got to go, which honestly was the worst thing that they could have ever did. So they sent everybody out, but during this time, we see Cornbread show back up, but he's also acting strange. Plus, he needs permission now to get into the house or to get back into the juke joint. Yet, what's wild is Cornbread has had access to the juke joint all day. Like, dude was inside. And that's how you know that we know he's been turned. And it just goes to show you, like, no matter how big and or how strong you are, the demon still needs permission to come against you. You feel me? So like even with old boy being huge, because cornbread is cornbread fed. You feel me? He's huge. But he can like the voodoo lady said, your big butt that been in here all day, you can push right past us with no problem. But he can't, because it's like an agreement. The demon literally has to get you to give them permission to enter your temple. Therefore, if you are walking righteously and you doing what you got to do, keeping your discernment up, your eyes and ears away from certain things, then you're not in agreements with them. But once you start to dabble into their realm, or once you start to listen to certain things or watch certain things, you are now in agreement, and they can get into your temple. But going back to that, we see the By us sinning. Yep. Yeah. So like I was saying, by us sinning or allowing ourselves to fall into temptation, we are in agreements with them. And now we're gonna fast forward, right? So we're fast forwarding to see Stack back alive, yet he's talking to his older brother. And yeah, yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, so we gonna probably stay off of that one and go back to the original. So now we see Stack alive talking back to his older brother. Well, he's trying to appeal to him and push his buttons to allow him to let him in, right? So demons, in a sense, have been with us from birth. I'm gonna be 1,000 with you. And they know what you like. They know what things you don't like. They know what things that make you tick. They know what buttons to push. So this is the classic case where where they should have used spiritual discernment or spiritual judgment. Because yeah, it might sound like Stack, it might look like Stack. That's not your brother no more. Then we see my boy break through the door, and the voodoo lady, she splashes him with like some pickled garlic, and that was used to, pretty much deter Stack. So I'm gonna be real with you. I had to look up the spiritual significance of like what all of that does. So even in what it says, so like for garlic, is used for purification. For wood, is used, they say like the cross or Christ's sacrifice. And then a silver is like a betrayal or Judas, kind of like that piercing truth, pretty much. So that's what would kill a vampire in a sense. And then you also got sunlight, which is like Christ, the truth or cleansing, right? And like it says in John 8 and 12, I am the light of the world. And then we also see that the voodoo lady tells them that it's not a haint, it's actually a vampire. And she's like, it's much worse because it says that a vampire is something that actually traps a soul in the body, aka like a demon or a person that's possessed. And that the best thing that we can do is free his spirit. So this could be freeing his spirit through redemption. But she also says we have to kill them one by one. So that doesn't, in my opinion, we have to kill them one by one. It doesn't necessarily just mean physically, but okay, that was my other phone. It doesn't just mean physically, but it can also mean metaphorically. Like you must kill that demon or your sins to be true to truly free your spirit, right? And um then we also go into kind of like that next scene where Sammy has the big revelation after she says all of that. And he's like that his pop said that the devil would come for him due to his music. Once again, we see like the blues and him following this path leads to damnation if he keeps doing it. So, excuse me. Then we have old girl who the voodoo lady. She was throwing out different objects and stuff like that. Kind of like throwing out different objects, trying to tell what was going to be going on, kind of and see if they were going to be protected during the rest of the night, because they really just had to make it to the morning time. But she was trying to make sure that they was going to be protected. So let's fast forward. Then we see that Smoke and Sammy take out a dead body outside where they see the head vampire and demons gathered around by others, right? Everybody who had left and evacuated in the first place, they got turned. So they're all dancing and they're singing this song called Rocky Road to Dublin. And when I had to look that song up, the song meaning is like it's a chaotic Irish folk song, which is kind of like a descent into sin. And then we also see what's wild is that I told my homie, like, cause I'm not gonna front, you couldn't really hear a lot of the movie. But I told my homie that it's a cool movie, right? But it would have been better if we knew what they were saying. Like 80% of the movie, in my opinion, you can't really tell what's being said. And I honestly think that's by design because this way they can actually cast spells over you just by the beat. Like, just think about it. You know, a lot of the songs they just cast spells, but that beat, or they mumble rapping, and that beat is just catchy. And it's like you're vibing, but you're not really paying attention to the words that's being said. Kind of like even with Lil Uzi Vert, right? You know, with the song "I Just Want to Rock," like he said, it's hypnotic. You know, it's mind control. But we don't pay attention to that. We just like beats. You feel me? But like I said, with us listening to certain things, vibing with it, agreeing with it, you know, even if it's unbeknownst, that's how they get into your temple, or that's how they get permission to get into your home. So let's fast forward. We almost done, family. I'm on page 17. We got 21 left. No, I'm tripping. Page 17 of 21. So we fast forward to the Asian lady, right? And she actually gets tempted by her husband and the head demon. And they're asking to let them in, right? Well, the head demon starts threatening what she loves, which is her daughter. And then on top of that, excuse me, excuse me, the demons, like I said, will use any tactic to gain access to your soul, your temple, or your space. So he found something she loves and starts threatening that. You know, like I said, any form, family, it don't matter. He tempted with gold coins, tempted with I can save you, tempted with threats, all different types of stuff. And then he even was crazy. He even speaks Chinese, which is wild. Yet when we think about it, demons have been around for a long time. So they have been, they move from spirit to spirit, or from person to person, host to host, I should say. So they've been able to experience all types of stuff. And once Sammy hears all of this and sees him speaking in Chinese, Sammy says, "You're the devil." And he responds, the head demon or the head vampire responds as, "You are the reason that I am here. I want to see my people again. And your music can do just that." Crazy, right? So it, like, what I'm saying is, just guard your eyes and your ears, man. Music is definitely a gateway to hell. Like, especially like mainstream music. A lot of this music is actually prayed over by like executives, like head executives. And a lot of music does have like double meanings. Like some musics you can like, you know, play backwards and you will hear like a hidden message, and or some music is used for like hypnotic or mind control, like I said earlier with Lil Uzi Vert. He said it himself. And next we see that this is actually important because oh wait next we see like the head demon kind of trying to reason with the remnants that's left. Smoke and the voodoo lady, Sammy, the Asian lady, Slim, and the married woman. He's trying to reason with all them. And he said, "This is beautiful. You built something here, and it was this is you built something here and it was beautiful, but it was built on a lie." So it's like, the way I'm looking at it is, yeah, it's beautiful, but I can look at it like all the false religions, that's out there that, leads you away from Christ. It's beautiful, it's full of, um, it's full of like, smoke and mirrors. But at the end of the day, they're all built on lies and deceptions that honestly will fall. And um, we also see that that's kind of like a false sense of security, or a false sense of peace, freedom, that the world normally gives, normally says that we can obtain from them, or obtain from following these religions. But in reality, only God can truly set you free, family. And I'm truly seeing that nowadays. Only He can set you free. And what's wild is, even if you listen to the next part that the head vampire says, is he wants to turn everyone. And the girl said that we're gonna build a new clan, right? And that new clan is gonna be based off of love. Well, this is more like, the Christian doctrine or the Christian deception now. So it's like everyone thinks that it's just based off of love, and that's what's gonna get you into heaven. When no, that's not the case. Like, it's more about your actions. Yeah, you do have to still love, but your deeds as well. Like, it's more to it than just that. And it says after we kill y'all, we gonna have heaven right here on earth. So that's just more of them kind of like playing around, saying like, we're going to bring the salvation, not Christ. But demons can't give you anything except damnation. And then um we find out that I'm trying to see if I got the name meaning in here. We find out that Stack's name is Elias. I don't think I have the biblical name meaning of Elias in here. Yep, I'm looking for it, but I don't see it. But we see that his name is Elias. So then the next scene, we see the Asian girl is irrational. So after, the head demon tells them all of this, they go back inside, and now they trying to, like, Smoke is literally sitting there trying to come up with a plan. But the Asian girl, she's acting irrational, right? So like I said, Smoke is thinking of a master plan, but she just wants to jump in without thinking and or, having a strategy, which, like it says, cooler heads generally prevail. And she gets so crazy and so unstable, and you know to the point where in the times and the troubles of a storm, where she has to physically be restrained, and they try to cover her mouth, but she breaks free and she tells them that they can come in. She said, come on in, right? So now she has just put everybody at a downfall because she is, unstable. She isn't thinking clearly, which just goes to show you have to be careful who you have in your camp, family. Not everyone is good for protection. Her one mistake was the downfall of everyone. So just think, in the end times during persecution, people would be under immense pressure. They might be bribed, they might, not have food, and it's like, well, you can eat if you give up some Christians or so. And some people will fold, but you have to make sure that you put the right people in your camp. Try the spirit by the spirit, use correct discernment and judgment. Now we're gonna fast forward. I'm actually about to get up, go see if it's still recording. Give me just a sec. I'll drink some water too. Man, awesome. We still going. Okay, so let me finish out. Whoa. So we almost done, y'all. So going back, we're fast forwarding, right? Now we see Sammy is forced. So they have a huge fight. I'm gonna bring you back into speed. They have a huge fight, and Sammy is forced on the outside of the building. Well, the demons actually swarmed him, but the head demon or the head vampire tells him, "I want your stories and I want your songs." So what's crazy is Sammy then begins to pray. He begins to pray the Lord's Prayer. But who knows the Bible more than the devil, or better than Satan? He chimes in along with the legion of vampires or demons that's behind him. And they all start saying the Lord's Prayer as well. Well, you gotta realize, like it says, that in Revelations, excuse me, in Revelations 12 and 4, his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. So he has this legion, behind him, and they all know the Bible too, because they was up there. But what's wild is while he was doing this, or while, they before they was saying a prayer, the head demon was kind of like baptizing or reverse baptizing Semi, which was wild. And then you see like the head vampire or the demon says those words still give me comfort, as he's kind of, like I said, baptizing Sammy in this lake. He said that, get this, family. He said that a man who stole his father's land long ago, said these words, and it gave him comfort. He said that he promised promised heaven above and hell below, and dominion over beasts. What was wild is this is just like Satan twisting the truth, right? However, when you really think about it, also the time that this movie came out during Easter, I say Easter because it's not real. Like nobody in the Bible celebrated Easter. They celebrated Passover, but that's a story for a different day. But Christ, he's talking about Christ right here. Christ died and rose and took the keys to hell, stole my father's land. On top of that, the head vampire said he promised lies of heaven above and hell below, and dominion over beasts. That's pretty much Christ came and taught. He said, none of this was lies. But if you get a demonic or a one-sided story and make everyone believe it, you would think that righteousness is wrong too. So that's everyone, that's where everyone is today, believing the opposite of the true narrative. You know, they believe that, you know, Satan is the good one, whereas Christ is the bad one, or God is the bad one. Satan is the one who wanted to enlighten us and help us, whereas God wanted to keep us back and stuff. And I know y'all might be like, that's a stretch, but it's not. Like, think about the story of, I be hearing this from my family members, Enlil and like Inky or some stupid stuff like that. But it's all deception, family. Going back to fast forwarding, then you have Smoke actually saves Sammy in the end. And so this is the same man who told him to stay on the righteous path. Like I said, that voice of reason. And Elijah, aka Smoke, stabbed the demon through the heart. And as soon as that happened, once the sun came up, fire came down and consumed him. Like we seen earlier, Elijah was a prophet who called down fire from heaven. So going back to that, the sun rises and all the lesser demons burn up in the flames. So they're pretty much cleansed, or the demons can't live in the light. So like it says right here, where are we? Where it says 2 Corinthians 6:14. What fellowship hath light with darkness? So they couldn't stay around no more. And then we also see, like, after all of this tragedy, after all of this, Sammy still can't let go of the sins that got him in the situation in the first place. That dang guitar, man. And it's kind of like a dog returning back to his own vomit. And that's in Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returning to his vomit, as a fool returning to his folly. Sammy won't let go of that dang guitar, bro. And we see, like, this got you in all of this trouble. All of this happened because you wanted to go and play or forsake the path that you should have been on, but you still can't let it go. You still can't give it up. So now we're back at the opening where we see Sammy coming to the church, tattered, bruised, hurt, kind of like a BET movie. You know, they show you the end and then this is what happened. And then they go back to it. But what's wild is now we see flashbacks to getting the juke joint right. Everybody, you know, getting everything nice and neat for everybody to come that night. But it also is kind of like, it just shows you that just because you have a good thing, or, you know, good intentions, or want to turn something for your own good, doesn't negate the fact of what God said. He said, rest on the Sabbath, not to party, not everything else. And this is why all of that happened. Like, you know, because they wanted to disobey. They wanted to do their own thing. And this is honestly the same thing when it comes to celebrating these holidays, the mainstream holidays. Same thing with like eating, you know, unclean foods that we're not supposed to eat. You know, it's at the end of the day, what he told us, you know, not, you know, he told us not to do it, right? Yet, God don't actually care about your intentions. Like, what did he say do? So, you know, they doing all of this, but they really supposed to be chilling, you know, reverencing in him. And we celebrating all of this or, we eating all of this stuff. We try to pray over it, or we celebrate, and we like, oh, well, God knows our heart. No, in word, what did he tell you not to do? He told you not to do this stuff. So at the end of the day, I don't care your intentions. At the end of the day, I told you to do something. You didn't do it. So kind of finishing this out, at the end, we see Smoke take off the voodoo protection. After all of that, we see him take off that. He rips off the little voodoo mojo bag, right? Almost kind of like, I don't need this anymore. I'm under a new protection. And once again, we saw earlier from the name meanings and breakdowns that Yah is with me. So now he doesn't need that mojo or needs the voodoo protection anymore. He's protected by somebody else, the Most High. And then last but not least, we're back at the church, right? Where Sammy's dad is trying to get him to put down a guitar. But Sammy cannot give up that sin, bro. Sammy just won't give up that guitar. And then what's wild is in the end, we see Sammy choose the sin. He instead, of being that prodigal son who returns and does the right thing, he goes back off and does his own thing. Like I always say, nah, I'm going to do my own thing. And that's just what Sammy did. He even disobeyed what Smoke wanted him to do after Smoke saved him and still went to Chicago, as we see him driving away, pretty much choosing his sin over his true calling. And like I said, we see about 60 years later, we see Sammy is still playing the blues or still playing the guitar. And then last but not least, which is the very end scenes, we see what's even crazier is at the end credit scene where Stack and Mary show up, still, demonized, still not aging a day, like he said in the beginning, yeah, I'll ride in hell and I'll save you a seat too. That's them now. They are in damnation because they're turned and they're loving it now. And what's important is they offer Sammy eternal life. Like, I can bite you and grant you eternal life. But that's only something that God can do. So, it's coming with a price. Yeah, you might have eternal life, but you have no soul anymore, dog. Like you here to like just roam the earth forever. And last but not least, what's the most important thing throughout the entire movie is we hear Sammy say to them, he was like that he still once a week for 60 years, dog, wakes up with night terrors, having, vivid images of what happened during that time, right? But he said before the sun went down, that was the best day of his life. So sin, dancing with the devil, debauchery, playing with fire, all of that was the best day of his life, dog. And that's honestly how the movie ended. So that's my full spiritual breakdown of Sinners. I know I gave y'all the short similitude one. But let me go ahead and go to my closing over here, because at the same time, my closing message was Sammy never let go of his guitar or never let go of his sin. And the same thing applies to us. What sin are you still clutching long after the Most High God told you to drop it? Like it says, choose this day who ye will serve. Will you keep dancing in the flames? Honestly, ask yourself that. Will you keep dancing in the flames just like Sammy did? You feel me? So once again, y'all, that's my full spiritual breakdown of the movie Sinners. Sorry it took this long to really get there. But yeah, I hope that, this could edify somebody and, truly save another soul, because for it to receive 8.2 on IMDb, and all of my family members are like, man, this was a great movie. Like, bro, you don't understand what you just watched. You don't understand like what is really going on, the spiritual undertones that's at play. So yeah, this your boy Kendall from the Uneducated Truth, or Tut, signing off. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Deuces.